Hello and welcome to the 21 Clear podcast, where we talk about anything to help you chaos-proof your family business so you can build a great company with a strong family around it. I'm your host, Adam Hatcher, and I am excited today to share a conversation with you with Shane Arthur, a phenomenal executive coach from Raleigh, North Carolina. And we're going to talk with Shane about the idea of regret. How do we build a great company and not look back with regret? I want to take a couple of minutes and share an idea with you that has helped me as I think about setting goals as an owner. But then we're going to quickly pivot to an interview with Shane where we expand on that, because families are in a unique position to define success and broaden it beyond just company financial results. So let me share an idea, and then we're going to go to the interview with Shane. We were at a conference, a supplier conference, for a customer of the family's company. And one of the company's executives got up and shared with the suppliers, many of whom were family businesses and family-owned companies, an idea that was new to me: growth, liquidity, and control. When you work in your family company, you get to set the priorities, the overall strategic priority, and you can pick from those three, usually two of them: growth, liquidity, and control. So growth is expanding the company. Liquidity is having money outside of the company to give to the owners to do things outside of the business versus reinvesting it. And then control is the degree to which the family ownership group maintains control of the company versus the bank or private equity or outside investment. When you think about setting a big strategic goal for your company, a strategic foundation, you can typically pick two of those three and trade it off against the third. Let me give you an example. If you are a family-owned company that prioritizes growth and control, what that means is you're seeking to grow the business, and because you want to keep control, you're going to do it by reinvesting the profits. You won't have as much to distribute to the owners for them to do things outside of the company, because you don't want to bring in outside investment for the capital needs to grow. You don't want to become over-leveraged to the bank, or if you do take a loan out to the bank, you're going to pay it off pretty aggressively. So you're offsetting liquidity, owner distributions. You're offsetting that or trading it off to be growth and control. We're recording this at the end of May. You're probably starting to look back on the first half of your year, look to the second half, and even begin to think about strategic planning for the next year. If you've never thought about this, growth, liquidity, and control, and sat down as a family and said, I wonder what we are. What are our two? It could be one, but probably two. What are our priorities? It is a helpful framework for you. But that's not the only way in family-owned companies we define success. Shane Arthur has a way, he's our guest today, and he has a way of helping owners and executives, family-owned businesses or not, look at what their goals and priorities are, and then make sure they don't look back in a few years when they've accomplished them and regret having missed out on something bigger. I'm excited to share this conversation with Shane with you. Let's drop right into it. Shane Arthur, welcome to the 21 Clear podcast. How are things in Raleigh, North Carolina?
They're good, man. They're really good. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. Y'all, I am so excited to share some time with Shane, with you, because he is uniquely qualified to talk about this idea of setting priorities and being successful as a company, but do it in a way that we don't look back with regret. And Shane, you won't talk about yourself, so I will. In June of 2019, Shane took a step out and started Arthur Coaching, and told me a while ago he woke up in the morning wanting to make sure that owners and executives did not look back in 5 years with regret? How could he help them take steps today to not look back with regret? And this approach, Shane, I mean, you'd been in business for less than 2.5 years. In December of 2021, Influence Digest named Shane one of the top 20 executive coaches in Raleigh, North Carolina. And you hadn't been in business that long. And now here we are almost 6 years later, actually 6 years later the next month. So congratulations to you.
Thanks.
So I just want to jump right in. You are really good at helping people that are successful think about regret. What is it about that interests you with successful people?
Thanks, Adam. One of the things about that leaving story was I had a good career, and as they put the next promotion on the table, it was a third of the country. And at that moment, we had a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old. The life was already stretched pretty thin. And I could see where I could keep enjoying my career, but it was clear quickly that there would be real regret from all that I would have missed at home. And so it was a part of my story. And I found working more and more with business owners and CEOs that it's a regular conversation with folks.
And is it a conversation that when people come to you, is it a conversation they've been having, or is it something that getting a breath with you, it allows them to start talking about?
It's usually an itch that's in their head that they're not really talking to people about. But it's not a new idea that I'm introducing. It's there. They've created some kind of success or reached some kind of plateau in their professional lives, and they're thinking about a pivot of some sort. But with that, they're recognizing the cost that they've just paid in the last season, and they're trying to imagine what are they going to do differently in this next 5 years that makes them look back really proud with the decisions that they made.
Is there a particular age? Because you said they've gotten to a point at the end of a phase. Is there a particular age when you find people start soul searching? Is it their 40s, their 50s, or can it kind of come in at any point?
Yeah, I hope we're always dreaming about what's next and how life could be a little bit better. I know that when I started this business, I was working with older folks who were in their 50s, and more of them were saying things like, I've only got 1 more year left with my daughter at home. Help me make the most of it. And now as my clients have spread out a little bit more demographically, I'm hearing more from people who have small kids at home. Those are obviously very different conversations. But it's noticeable to me that there is typically much more regret in the life of a business owner as their kids are transitioning out of the house. Whereas when their children are still small, there is really just a deep sense of physical tiredness.
So if you're talking to a business owner who's getting to that second, third, fourth, that final son or daughter, getting to the end of high school, and they're starting to deal with looking back and thinking, oh no, I might have missed something. How do you help them with that?
It's just a catalyst. You know, I love looking back, but only because of how it makes us change our behavior. I'm not interested in people feeling guilt or shame for their past decisions. We know those things are not good long-term motivators for anything, but they do open our eyes into what we wished had been true. And my job as a coach is to get a little sense of what they had wished was true, and then make a very fast pivot towards, well, what can be true tomorrow?
Think about an owner then who been successful. They've realized they want to make a pivot before their next act. What are some decisions you have to help them with, or some things they have to let go?
You know, we strategize so much about our businesses and think about what's next. I love helping people think about how to turn that strategy a little bit towards things outside of their business. I was on a call recently with a gentleman who's probably approaching a pivot. And he and I were talking about the summer coming up and kids being out of school and what that meant. And this is a guy he's not overworking. He has good boundaries, but you know, he owns a wildly successful business. And so there's a lot of responsibilities there. He and I just talked about, what does it mean during this summer to create surprise with your children? What would that look like for you to surprise them with your presence in a couple of different ways this summer. Just a way to start him dreaming about how to use that strategic genius that he has, but instead of towards new clients, back towards these kids that he loves so much.
Think about him or about someone like that. I'm sure someone's listening to this as we get into June, into July. And Shane, you may have just said that and they thought, ooh, I would love to surprise my kids with my presence. And I don't even know what does it even look like to wrestle with that? What would you tell a person who's dealing with that feeling right now?
I took one of my kids to the dentist the other day, right in the middle of the school day. And simple, straightforward, pick up, dentist, drop off, big hug. It's good to see him during the day. And as I walked him into school, he said, Dad, next time, can we just go to Chick-fil-A together? And I thought, yeah, we could do that. That's a real option for us to do that. It's just outside of the ordinary, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm thinking about is what are opportunities that we have? It's part of the, I appreciated what you said earlier about the three quadrants of your triangle. One of the things that business owners, they're always going to be holding on to control a little bit, right? Like it's their thing. I don't find business owners that aren't interested in control to some degree, right? That's why we don't work for other people. I like to help people use that. I like to help people own that they have a lot of freedom. It's one of the reasons why I really enjoy working with business owners is whenever there's a word like can't, I get to pause them and let them answer that and use a little different word for that. We don't work for other people, right? Like that's just a different reality.
Don't work for other people. I am all but certain, though, you've had to help owners wrestle with something they're refusing to let go of in order to get the thing that they, as you help them see what they want, to get that, there's something there. Like, if you're talking to somebody who's having trouble letting go, what are some of the things you see executives struggle to let go with?
Yeah, I'm sure our audience have some overlap in values. Nine times out of 10, it is responsibility for people that they care about. They have built a world, a business where they are just responsible for almost every person they interact with during a given day. And so they might be willing to sacrifice lots of things for themselves, but what they're not going to do is not take care of people. And I find that we're not paying attention. We can treat that as a binary thing. It's not binary, right? Like there's always limits. We always like to do a little bit more for our employees or a little bit more for our clients. That bar never is high enough. And so I like to help folks recognize what's going on there.
So if it's not binary, how do you help them realize that it's more malleable than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the biggest gifts I have in my life is a 79-year-old mentor who's got professional success beyond my imagination. And somehow I get to have lunch with him every other week. And one of the things he says is that the older and older you get, the less problems you're solving. We do more of that when we're younger, when we're building something. But as we get older, we're managing tensions much more. And I think that's the conversation we're having right now. You teed it up really well as you talked about the three edges of your triangle. This is real life, right? Like this is business, family, health, wealth, church involvement, philanthropic interests. Like there is tension between how we spend our resources on all of these things. I like to tell people just look at their allocations. Look at what's getting their time. Often what's getting their best energy is a better conversation with business owners. Most of the people I work with, and I think that you work with, we're not talking about people that are radically overworking, right? We're talking about people with decent boundaries that try to make it home for dinner. But their energy, their creative and strategic energy is almost always going far more towards their business pursuits. Even though you and I both know they don't value their business more than they value their kids and their family, right?
But their business is getting the majority of their creative time. That is a fascinating way to frame that, Shane. Not just your time, but where are you getting your creative time?
Yeah, I didn't realize it until I started working with more and more business owners. But I don't think strategic and creative work is. I don't think it's just for business. I just think that we've trained our minds to go there. And the reality is, in a profit-driven world, we usually can see success there much faster. So whenever I'm inviting a wife or a husband to think about how they're engaging with their partner or how they're engaging with their children, and I realize it's a leap that I'm asking for. I'm asking them to take a risk somehow with these most significant relationships in their lives. I remind them it's going to take longer than it is when you lead a great meeting and see results very quickly. Sometimes we get impatient. I think often business owners are impatient, and I can get results faster professionally than I can in my own house almost every day of the week.
How do you help somebody get ready for that? I mean, if you're listening to the podcast, not watching this, you can't see me cracking up because I've done the same thing. And Shane, I have one of my sons has had a medical condition over the last couple of years that has taken using every bit of the strategic creativity I used in partnering in a family to scale a company. It's taken every bit of that, focused on just that child's needs. And it was easier to scale the company. How do you help people get ready for both letting go of redirecting some of their strategic energy and preparing for it not being or seeming as effective?
Yeah, I mean, we're back to talking about regret, right?
Yeah.
People like to say on our deathbeds, nobody regrets their lack of professional success. They're always talking about their family. I think that's unhelpful. I actually think a lot of people regret a lot of professional things they didn't chase a little bit harder, a little bit differently. I do resonate with the fact that deeper regrets usually do have to do with family. I think that's true. Again, I think this is the tension that we're dealing with. And so I am often asking people to fast forward a little bit. With most of my clients, I'm talking actively about the next 5 years. I think that is a great unit of time to look at as we think about change. But even then, asking them to look ahead, like when your kids are 5, 7, and 9, and you're in that age and stage, you're going to have an empty house, right? It's going to happen, and that is unfathomable to me, right? Like, our kids are 7 and 9. I hope that is a long time away. I want more and more time with my kids in our house, but it's coming, and I can already fast forward, imagine that day with a little help, and think back to this season. What I wish was true for me about this summer, right? Our kids get out of school in 2 weeks. What will I wish was true about this summer? When my autopilot is to have more and more powerful conversations with really interesting people, right? That's my autopilot. I think about, okay, let's do that again instead of, yeah, let's take my son to Chick-fil-A.
When you say that, the image I get, last night I was looking at my phone and it popped up. If you've got an iPhone, it likes to feed you memory videos, which are a great way to sit and cry by yourself. But it was of my wife. And I looked back at pictures from 2 years ago, from 2023, of places we had been together, and realized that none of those were in an office or on a call. As much as I love this chase of chaos-proofing a family business, and it is important, like you talking with people and helping them not look back with regret is important. Practically, I think none of those would have made it in that photo stream. And would I love to have had 2 or 3 more intentional pictures in there? There was one from a getaway we did. We went to visit our nephew, in Scotland. And I love that was there, and it was really hard to do. But that's one of those 5 years from now, I'll be glad when that memory pops back up that we carved out the time and did that.
That's right. That's right. And when you're making those choices, we want to make sure that you're present, right? because I find that many business owners, once they've achieved a certain level of success, they actually get really good about booking really nice vacations. And we end up talking about, how do you make sure you're present there? What in the world are you giving away in the week before you leave to make sure you don't need your phone?
You told a pretty honest story recently. I'm curious if I could bait you into telling it here about what may have been the most, to set this up, Shane has a fantastic LinkedIn profile. We're going to link it in the show notes. Gets a lot of reactions, and maybe your most, if not one of your most successful posts. I remember you put it up as you went on vacation with your family, and it wasn't that post that was interesting. Do you mind sharing about the one after it where you looked back with regret on having been successful? Because I remember you saying, I was on my phone the whole time. I did.
Yeah.
As someone on LinkedIn with a social media presence, you did what people want to do. It went viral.
That's right.
And it cost you a vacation.
Yeah, it was a great, simple family vacation. And I'm a little too prolific on LinkedIn. Just try to toss something on there every day that encourages folks or ask folks to ask some deeper questions of themselves. And I just tossed one up. I think it was probably a repost of one that had done well before. And I put it up, I don't know, walking to the beach, going out to the car for something. And when I checked it an hour later, it had exploded. It's one of my 4 largest posts ever in the history of LinkedIn. And I spent the next 3 days watching a post go viral, trying to respond to comments, right? Once it starts going, you don't want to stop it. And so a little bit of gas on it. 3 days of a vacation that my attention was more on a viral LinkedIn post instead of my kids sitting there on the beach. Like, we were literally building sandcastles, and I was trying to think about when was the next time I could sneak my phone off and see what was going on.
And it may sound trivial or silly to someone outside of the coaching world, but getting attention on LinkedIn and keeping your presence out there is a big part of building your brand and building coaching. It's similar if you're in a larger company, if you're checking Slack and Teams and email or text messages. It's the same as LinkedIn. It's a different app that pulls you away. We've got people listening who are coming in, Shane. Let me ask you this as a final question. They're coming into the strategic planning part of the year. You know I love that.
I do love that.
And my hope is in listening through this podcast, that if they've never asked that question, are we growth control, liquidity control, growth liquidity? Which 2 of the 3 are we? Particularly if our customers are going in a particular direction. If they clearly pick 2 and then start to build plans around that, having set that priority. You've talked about being in the room, if you were in the room, and asking them, hey, you're doing that, but how are you going to do it in a way that you're not going to look back in 5 years and wish it was different? I'm curious when you're talking to people who are setting these audacious business goals, because those are good, what's one other thing you have them think about or challenge them with or encourage them in that you would tell our listeners as they go in the rest of their year?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. Whenever the big goal is established and it's set and they talk me through it, I say very clearly, now let's assume that it's going to work. Let's just assume it's done. What else needs to be true for you to be happy about hitting it? We set those big goals and then we worry that we won't hit them. The reality is we hit them, right? It might take a little extra time. It may cost us a little bit more cash, but we usually hit our big professional goals at some point. I like to help people think about what else should be true for us to look back with a big smile on our face.
And if you're in a family-owned company, if you're working together, if you own the business together, answering that question together is scary, it's
Yeah.
powerful, it's vulnerable, but it will build something great.
Yeah.
It's those kind of questions, Shane, that are so foundational to building a great company with a strong family. And I love how you said it before, not losing yourself along the way and looking back without regret. Shane,
That's the
thank
goal.
you. Yeah, it is. Well, Shane, thank you so much. I'll just say you are the first guest on the 21 Clear podcast, which means two things. You are the best, and it will only get better from here.
The kind
Thank you
word.
so much for
Adam.
being here. Yeah.
Pleasure, man.
Well, so if you look at the show notes, Shane's LinkedIn profile is there. He also recently launched a great website for Arthur Coaching. That's in the show notes as well. How you can help us at 21 Clear is by subscribing or following this podcast once a month. We are going to have a guest like Shane or some of our own observations all around how you chaos-proof a family business to build a great company with a strong family. I am deeply thankful to you for listening today. I hope as you think about success and regret, you take a couple of things that can help you get better, your family, and your company. And so we will see you next time. As my grandfather would have said, thank you so very, very much for listening.